glasses off so I can actually see you. Oh, I'm going to take my slippers off as well if you don't mind. There we go, meant to do that before. It is Wednesday the 13th of May, and it's Movement Not Miracles with Eat, Move, Be Happy. I'm Anna, and today I thought we'd do a little bit of everything. Yesterday we went through ankles and calves and hips, so we'll do a little bit of everything today, just to keep things a bit interesting, but also thinking about those of you that are sitting still for maybe longer than normal because you might be working in strange places, you've got workplaces at home, or maybe sitting watching a little bit more television than normal. So keep sitting still or staying in one position for any length of time is not good for us. We get aches and pains, and our joints and our muscles stiffen up. So the purpose of these Movement Not Miracle sessions is to give you a very brief look at some of the stuff that you can do every day without equipment, frequently throughout the day, to keep yourself more mobile, keep yourself moving, and maybe stretch out some of those aches and pains. So to start off with, we'll start with our shoulders. If we're sitting at, well, I don't know about you, but if I'm sitting working, then I tend to sort of sit, that was my elbow cracking, and my shoulders are quite rounded. And then if I sit watching television, I just sort of slump, which is not good for my lower back. So we want to work on getting our posture in as much of the right position as we possibly can, and that is something that for most of us takes a bit of effort. So what we're aiming for is I might actually take my cardigan up so you can see what I'm talking about. It would help, wouldn't it? It's a bit chilly, so I'll have my cardigan on. So you want some space across your collarbones, so we don't want our shoulders forward, we want our shoulders up and back and down, so there's some nice space across our collarbones, and for that to happen we need to actually squeeze our shoulder blades together. Hopefully you can see my shoulder blades moving underneath my t-shirt. So I want you to think of shoulders up and back and down. Now obviously we're exaggerating this move just to get some movement in those shoulder blades, and you can do this standing or sitting, by the way. But if you think of really exaggerating that move, so you're squeezing your shoulder blades back together, and hopefully you can see my shoulder blades moving on the back of my chest. And that's what we're aiming for. Our shoulder blades should move. So keeping that movement going, that can just help keep that breadth across your collarbones. That can just help with that slouch position that we can fall into. So take that into a shoulder roll, and for those of you that can, if I'll show you from the side, my shoulder flexibility is not brilliant. So my shoulders go to about there and then sort of get stuck. If you can get your shoulders back behind your ears, then please do. It often helps if you've got hold of either a belt, a dressing gown belt, or an ordinary belt, or a broom handle, because you've got something to brace against. But we're not doing that one today, but just for point of information. So nice big shoulder rolls. Remember, we're not going to let our bottom stick out or our belly stick forward. So everything starts from the base. We should have our feet, and actually I just looked down at my feet then and they were at an angle. Have your feet so that your feet are parallel, which will mean that it feels like your toes are tucked in a little bit. The outsides of your feet parallel, which means that you're in a good neutral position in your hips. So if your feet are sticking out, you're encouraging your hip bones, your thigh bone to move in your hip joint, which isn't wrong, but we want movement in the hip as well. We want the hip joint to be healthy and be able to sit in a neutral position. So let's start from the base. So nice big shoulder rolls. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just work continue to work on that shoulder mobility. So if you get hold of clasp your fingers, keeping that pelvis tucked under, so not your bottom sticking out, pelvis tucked under, so work through your glutes to extend through your hips. If you're sitting, it's exactly the same, so sitting nice and tall, up out of your pelvis. Imagine that you're being pulled up by a rope attached to the crown of your head. So you're trying to get some space through each vertebrae in your spine. So nice and tall, back nice and flat. Clasp your hands together, squeeze those shoulders back, shoulder blades together, and try and straighten your arms. Now I struggle to straighten my arms, but lifting your arms away from your body, and you should feel that, one, really squeezing your shoulders, but also a stretch across the front of your shoulders too. So, and you can just release that, give your shoulders a bit of a tactical waggle, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. This time, same on the other side, clasp your hands the other way. So if your little finger, whichever little finger was on the bottom, swap it behind your back. We just get a slightly different perspective. Start with the base, broaden across your collarbones, and nice and relaxed. Don't let your shoulders creep up. Everything should be relaxed. Work through the actual stretch. Try and keep your face and your neck relaxed. If everything else is relaxed, you've got more chance of actually stretching and moving through your shoulders. Okay, so you should feel a little bit more movement in your shoulders and a bit of a stretch across the front of your shoulders as well. So we'll take that into a twist, and you can do this standing. I'm going to do it seated. Again, this is something that you can do whilst you're in the middle of, if you're working or if you're sitting. So you can do this move. It doesn't have to be part of a particular mobility session. You can just do this when you feel like you need to. Again, it starts from your base, so sit on the bones of your bottom. Don't slouch down and sit on the fleshy part of your bum. So sit up on the bones of your bottom, and you should feel your weight evenly spread between your left and your right side. If you can, feet flat on the floor. Now what we're aiming to do, we want to bring one shoulder forwards. I'm twisting to my right, so my left shoulder is going to come forwards and my right shoulder is going to go behind me. Now if you've got a chair with a back, you can use the chair to help you. So left arm across the right thigh. Now you need to be sitting tall before you actually start the twist. If you're already crunched up, then it's going to be really difficult to get any movement. So we're trying. It helps me if I look the way that I'm twisting as well. It almost feels like your body has to follow your head. So just breathe into that move. You can pull on the back of the chair, and each time you breathe out, try and go a millimetre more. So you're aiming to try, we'll go to the other side, you're aiming to try and move through the whole of your spine. So I think of, if I start at the base and move vertebrae by vertebrae, and then get to my middle back, and as I breathe out, move up into my upper back, and there we go. Feels a bit nicer. And because the second time is always better, we're going to do the same thing on the first side again, and you might get a little bit more movement this time. So start from your base, and each time you breathe out, come a little bit further round. We've got sheep in our field again. Our sheep keep jumping out of our top field, and I think my husband is actually losing the will to live with them. So they're all back in the original field at the moment, which we're trying to rest the traumas of having sheep. Back to the second side. Oh, there's definitely a bit more movement on this side this time. So you can do twists as a bit of a stretch, which is what we've just done. So move, get into your position and move gradually and hold the position. Or you can do twists as a bit of a mobility. So there's more movement and less hold. some of it's preference. It's good to mix it up, I think. Sometimes holding the position means that some of the muscles that are supporting your joints will get the stretch that they need, but keeping the movement enables the joints to move as well. So mix and match it would be my suggestion. We're going to do a forward bend. Now, if you are seated, you can still do this in your seat, and I'll show you that one first. So the setup is exactly the same. We're not going to be sitting with our back against the back of the chair, and we're going to be sitting nice and tall, weight evenly distributed. And we're keeping our pelvis tucked under, and we're not leaning forwards, just crashing into it. What we're aiming to do is to really stretch through our back, almost as if you're being pulled forwards from a rope attached to your sternum. So you're actually moving your whole body forwards, which might mean you need to push through your feet so that you can stretch through your lower back. Be careful if you're in a chair, it doesn't move backwards as mine was doing then. So you're not just collapsing into it. These moves, they do actually require some action, some active move. We're not just folding into it. Now if you can, if you're able to stand and your back is not temperamental, and you can do a forward bend, so you're going to get some stretch through the back of your legs, but we're also going to get some stretch through pressure with our arms on a surface, and I'm using my table. So you want your hands to be flat on a solid surface. Kitchen work surfaces are actually quite a good height for this. So, can you see my hands? Hopefully you can see my hands. Should I just swizzle the camera a tiny bit? There you go. So you can see my hands on the table. Now, again, same thing with your feet. So your feet, don't let your feet stick out. Don't let your toes stick out, and don't let your heels stick out. Your feet should be parallel. And your legs need to stay vertical. What I tend to do is either lean back or lean forwards. So I'm just moving forward so that you can see me. So the surface means you can press down through your hands. So pressing through your hands means you can get some, oh, I just got a little clunk in my back then. You can get some movement in that upper thoracic region. So by pushing through your hands, you should be able to squash your shoulder blades onto your back chest. And then at the same time, think of pushing your bottom backwards. So you're going to feel some stretch through your hamstrings and your calves, possibly, but by pushing your bottom backwards as well, you should get some stretch through your lower back. And then if you keep breathing, think of pushing, if you just relax and then I'll show you. If you think of pushing the pads of your hand, so this bit of your hand down into the table, but make sure you're pushing through all of your fingers and evenly on both sides. And that sometimes can just help you, in that concentration, it can help you work through both arms with equal pressure, and then you can get that movement and stretching that upper back. It's often hard to access that upper back. So we'll try that one again. So bottom back, stretch through your armpits, keep breathing, relax through your head and neck. I quite like that stretch, that really helps my back. Okay, so last bit, and we'll take it back to being seated. So a little bit just to stretch through our hips. I say it often, I think I said it yesterday, we're not designed to sit in this position. Our hip joints are not designed to sit like this. They are a ball and socket joint, so they do move in more than up and down plane. They're not a hinge joint like your knees are. But when we just sit like this, we're not moving them through their full range of movement. But also your glute and the supporting muscles around the outside of your hips can get really stiff. So we're going to lift our ankle to rest on our thigh, And for those of you that have got really tight glutes and tight piriformis, you'll feel like now, I can feel like in the lower part of my bum and into my hip. So if you just gently push down with your elbow, again, sitting nice and tall. We're not crunching down and just flopping into it. So a little bit of pressure on that knee. And then if you just lean forwards a tiny bit, that should just increase that stretch. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So ankle on the thigh, sitting nice and tall, just a little bit of pressure on that knee. Sit nice and tall, don't collapse down into it. You'll feel the difference actually. The minute I relax and I think, oh yeah, I've just lost a bit of that stretch. So sit nice and tall, out of your bottom bones. When somebody first gave me the instruction of sitting on my bottom bones, I remember thinking that's a really strange thing to say, but actually if you think about it, we tend to sit on the fleshy part of our bum at the back, so we slouch, and actually we don't want to be doing that. You want to be sitting on the bones of your bottom, which means your weight's forward a little bit, and then you can straighten through your lower back, which is something that I'm becoming more aware of. I'm not always brilliant at it, but certainly when we're doing stretches and things, it's something good to be aware of. There's a big difference to sitting like this, where I've lost my bottom bones, to sitting up tall and got them there. Okay, so that's a little bit of everything. We started with our shoulders and our upper back. So as ever, little and often throughout the day, when you're making your cup of tea, you can do bits and pieces of movement, of stretch, mix and match it so that you look after your posture and you look after your joints, particularly with things like your upper back and your lower back. If they're stuck in the same position for a long time, then you can have aches and pains. Tomorrow we'll do something a little bit different. If you have any requests, let me know in the comments or on the Eat, Move, Be Happy peer support group, and I can incorporate those tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Check out Eat, Move, Be Happy for some other ideas around exercising at home, some well-being. We've got a Lessons from Lockdown article that's gone out this morning. So some things to be aware of whilst we are moving through this lockdown phase of our lives. How do you know what really matters to you, what's important to you, and how do you make sure that you continue with that as you move forwards? Because one thing's for certain, we can't go back. So when we hear people talking about going back to normal, probably a better way of thinking about it is moving forwards to whatever's coming next. Just food for thought. So go and check out the website www.eatmovebehappy.com and let us know how you get on with your movement, not miracles. And I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Have a good Wednesday.